Good morning, class. Today we are going to be talking about how people enact social change and the ways in which that social change occurs, or the mechanisms through which that social change occurs. So, there are several things that can help an individual enact social change or push for social change. And we talked about some of those on the Zoom on Friday. But I just wanted to delve into some different areas today where people tend to push for social change and how social change tends to occur. And there are a lot of different theories about how this goes down. And I'm just going to highlight some of those theories and then talk about more modern realities. Because some of the theories your book covers are more outmoded, or at least I don't think, based on the way that social change occurs currently, that they really hit the nail on the proverbial head. So, one theory that your book pushes is that those who are lower on the economic ladder tend to push more for social change, meaning that the workers of the world, and what I just said there may spark a thought as to who brought this theory up, but the workers of the world are the ones who push for social change in order to equalize the economy in their region. Now, if you look at how protest movements occur, there can be people from lower economic classes, being involved in them. There can be people of upper economic classes being involved in them. So economic class isn't necessarily the driver of social change, but it can cause one to want social change economically. But if we're talking about change, period, not economic change, then it's difficult to say that it's those of lowest socioeconomic class or lower uh, socioeconomic class that really push change. So that's one theory out there. Um, Another theory is that technology can push for change. Now, this is really brought up in the context of transitioning from hunter gatherer to agrarian. So, this is an old theory, but I think this one fits with our modern technological society. And if you look at how social change occurs, a lot of times movements are put out on some social media platform, which is technology, and or traditional media, uh, and then they just take off. So even things like GoFundMe, right, where someone has a cause, they get the message out, usually via social media, and say contribute to this GoFundMe for whatever cause. That's the use of technology. Uh, a lot of times, causes get posted on Twitter, and a lot of dialogue or debate takes place on Twitter. Facebook can be a place. I know it's not used a lot anymore by your generation, but my generation, for example, would use Facebook for dialogue, sometimes even political dialogue. YouTube, Instagram, there is conversation that goes on. Particularly, I think YouTube has a lot of political content and a lot of change related content. But there is censorship that is occurring currently on YouTube. It is a private platform, so they are able to choose what is on their platform, but it is technology being used for social change. So that would be one theory. So we have the theory that it's really economic discontent that drives social change, and the lower socioeconomic classes are the drivers of change. We have technology being a theory. We also have globalization being a theory. That globalization, as we spread out and interconnect, we encounter new theories, and or we encounter new social situations, new cultural situations, and then that drives the want for change. And since we have globalization, the word, which comes through technology, the word of one's cause gets out much more quickly to many, many more people. So, globalization theory is really tied to technology. It's very difficult to have globalization without the technology to drive globalization. So, even things like flight, right? So modern aircraft that can fly us from one nation to another within a matter of hours, that is part of globalization, but that's also technology. The internet in general would be part of globalization, which would be part of technology. So globalization is reliant on technology, and technology drives globalization. So globalization theory really, I think, is it walks hand in hand with the idea of technology. Okay, there are a couple other theories. One would be, and this is Max Weber, and he posits that religion drives change, that moral or ethical theories or moral ethical belief systems are responsible for being the drivers of change. And particularly, they are the drivers of societal change. And we actually do see this take place sometimes. I would say in a more modern context, meaning 2000s and beyond, it, it seems to be less of a force as far as religion is concerned for pushing for social change. It seems that culture is pushing back against religion, and it's the change coming from this way, not religion pushing the change this way. But even back in the 1980s, the early 1980s, in America, there was a group called the Moral Majority, and they were a religious group that was pushing for political and social change. So the Moral Majority, it was an organization that invited people who had conservative political leanings and who had religious beliefs, particularly more conservative or more fundamentalist religious beliefs, to join to push for a political candidate who would bring America back to its earlier religiously based culture. So that was the idea in the 1980s of the moral majority. And I mean, I think it's very fair to say that there is a push for social change from religion and from those who are religious. That being said, I would still contend that culture tends to push to change religion much more these days than religion can effectively push culture to change it. So Max Weber's theory about religion being a major source of change does have some merit. It's just looking at the way that technology is impacting things and looking at our, I don't want to say post-religious, that is a term, but I don't want to say our culture is quite post-religious yet, because even still recently, as in a few years ago, 74% of Americans said that they were Christian. They would respond that they were Christian. Now, what they meant by that was that they believed in a higher power, particularly the God of the Bible. But when respondents were further questioned, many of them did not attend services. Many of them did not really read the Bible. Many of them really had no participation in their religion, or even in the denomination or the Christian religion. Period. Outside of very, very occasional attendance to church. So it's it's a very difficult thing to define, but America would still identify as religious. But if we look at the culture and lining up with the values of Christianity, they do not really today. Culture does not. So the culture pushes its values this way, and the base of our culture is not fundamentally religious. So religion tends to get pushed to change instead of religion pushing for culture to change. All right, so those are three different opinions on social change, four if you count globalism or globalization, but I think globalization and technology really, they can almost be the same thing. They're not quite, but they can almost be the same thing. So one way that change could happen could be that those of lower socioeconomic status push for change. One way would be technology. One way would be globalization, but globalization is reliant on technology. and one way could be the moral or ethical or religious push for change. That being said, generally from grassroots movements for change, it's a matter of having a cause that people believe in, having good leadership to drive that cause. So, a cause, a lot of people, not just you being the founder of the cause, or not just a few people, but a cause a lot of people can get behind, having good leadership and having good PR skills, including propaganda. So we would look at that and say that those would be three things, regardless of the method used to get the word out. You need a cause, you need leadership, you need good PR. And usually that good PR plays some kind of victim angle of this, either this group, these individuals, or even if you're talking about like animal rights, like these animals are mistreated and therefore we need to speak for them since they cannot speak for themselves. So that would be a general strategy or course of action for social change, regardless of the four original means that we talked about. So we'll delve into this further in tomorrow's Zoom, just the idea of social change and the idea of individuals pushing for social change. Because really, if you look at change throughout time, it starts with an individual or a group of individuals who push for that change. I mean, great example, William Wilberforce pushing to end slavery in the UK, right? It started with one person who eventually got enough people behind him for change to occur. So that is usually how change happens, and I find that to be a very encouraging thing and also a very interesting thing. So we'll delve into this in the coming days about how individuals impact social and cultural change. Keep up the great work. I hope you guys have a great day.